Rivers do not drink their own water. Trees do not eat their own fruit. The sun does not shine on itself, and flowers do not spread their fragrance for themselves. Living for others is a rule of nature. We are all born to help each other. No matter how difficult it is, life is good when you are happy, but much better when others are happy because of you.
The creation of African Continental Free Trade Area is a step forward for the African integration, and it is very much welcome both by Africans in Africa and those in diaspora. The creation of such is the only second one since the formation of World Trade Organization in 1994, and is only compared to the size that can compete if it works in Africa. 1.3 billion people will benefit out of this free trade that has been signed and endorsed by 54 heads of state. After several years of up and down in the valleys of Africa and the mountains of Africa, we finally came to a conclusion that this has to happen, which brings us to the dream of Kwame Nkrumah when he said, at least building a block by block, Africa will one day unite to stand as a united continent. But are the members of this African Union committed? Will they implement what they have decided? Today, in several countries, we see signs of xenophobia, the lack of patriotism amongst the younger generation, the lack of employment, the unemployment, the mistreatment of the young, the youth, those who need jobs, the corruption, the amount of corruption that has eaten the entire continent of Africa could hamper the free trade that we are anticipating on the continent. What measures, therefore, have African heads of state put in place to ensure that those who lag behind, those who drop out, must be penalized? We should not sign the document for the sake of documents, but we should sign documents for practical reasons that we shall implement what Africa needs today. Can it happen in our times? Is it going to happen? Is integration a mirage? Is integration worth going to happen? Will it happen? What has happened about the present blocks that have started integration process? What have they done? Is Africa integrating? Thank you.
From what you have heard, the war in Libya brought down a country that was one of the most prosperous countries on the continent of Africa. It had its economic blueprint very well organized. It had educational facilities, recreational facilities, the economy, the people, the welfare of the people of Libya was one of the best on the African continent. Why then did we go there to kill it? And why then do we cry about the refugees that are crossing the Mediterranean Sea into France? Why is the French government stopping Africans who are passing through Libya or from Libya, crossing over to France? The French came and dismembered under Resolution 1970 of the United Nations Security Council. Under that pretext, dropped bombs on Libya. From that time, today, the United States of America plus other NATO countries that supported an imaginary dismemberment of this nation have never been remorseful. Some have been remorseful, like Clinton has said the role she played. Obama has been remorseful, said how they destroyed Libya. Mr. Cameron has been remorseful, was the Prime Minister of Britain by then. But remorsefulness, the one of France, who directed the killings, the murder, the slaughter, the slaying of all people because of an imaginary situation, did not say is sorry. The French have never said sorry to the Libyan people, whose economy, whose country has been turned into a begging country across the world, whose country has been dismembered, given to two factions, one in Benghazi, headed by the French again, and one in Tripoli. Is it the Africa we want? Is this the Africa which we look at things and we don't talk about it? Is it the Africa that we can go on, accept, and say it is all right to have a nation that has just grown up its GDP, paying the the welfare of its people, being cut to size? What was the rationale of killing Muammar Gaddafi? If they had wanted Muammar Gaddafi, they would have overthrown him without destroying the country, without giving the country to terrorists who later on turned themselves into rulers of Libya, yet they are terrorists. Muammar Gaddafi told us, they're terrorists, you are killing me, but the terrorists will take over this place. The Sahel region and North Africa will never be the same. Today, Africa is witnessing the same words have come back to haunt us. We have migrants. Britain is struggling with migrants coming through the Mediterranean Sea. France is struggling with migrants. Italy is struggling with migrants. Spain is struggling with migrants. This was not going to be as huge as it is today, because the Libyan leader had already done a good job by stopping some of these crossings that are now being seen on the Mediterranean Sea. What lessons, therefore, do we learn from the Libyan bungled invasion that has destroyed this country? Sarkozy made a case to the Parliament of France that there were nuclear weapons. Sarkozy told the world a lie. Therefore, why hasn't the world taken Mr. Sarkozy to the last point to show the nuclear weapons? That when they went to Libya to destroy Libya, they found the nuclear weapons. which Gaddafi had got. Why do we kill Africa? Why is it that African countries all are the ones that must be put in a turmoil? Then you go and defend, stop your border for Africans not to come to your country. Isn't it time for Africa today? And you African leaders, all of you who walk around here in meetings, running around with planes, ask questions. Ask questions. Why should the superpower come to break up an African country that is organized using lies? But today we have not seen the nuclear weapon. If there were nuclear weapons, can they show us the nuclear weapons that Mr. Gaddafi had? Mr. Gaddafi might have had his own problems. Yes, there are some things that he did extremely very well. There are some things that he did extremely very bad. But is there no policy of containment? The West. Was there no policy of containment? America, Clinton, wherever you sit, you will never touch that presidency of America because the curse of destroying Libya will haunt you. Obama, you did very badly. You have not shown us the proof of the nuclear weapons that you say, you claimed that Gaddafi had. So why should we develop a country in Africa? Allow it to grow, have its people well off, giving us oil, selling us the oil, then we come and kill it, destroy it, divide it into two. My question to African leaders, this could happen to you anytime, anywhere. It could also happen to anyone. So, time while you are still there, also inquire and ask questions. Why should a country in Africa with a good GDP, educating its people, having good roads, having good hospitals, having good schools, having clean water for drinking in a desert, is destroyed and divided into two parts? I submit, therefore, the policy of the West towards Africa, and especially the French towards Africa, is to siphon. They have siphoned the money, they have siphoned the oil out of Libya. They are now siphoning the human beings that are left on the Libyan continent, country. How long will this siphoning of the oil? In doing so, they have just done a strategy of divide Libya into two. The French are supporting General Khalifa Haftar against a government that is recognized by the United Nations. The African Union has fallen at crossroads because the African Union chief, Mohamed Faki, is an employee of the French government, but not an employee of African Union. How long can Africa wait to see itself, to see conflicts? There is another one brewing in Chad. The rebels that are in South Sudan, South Libya, trained by General Khalifa Haftar, came and killed Idris, who was an opponent of Mohamed Faki, was killed in cold blood for power. Mr. Mohamed Faki, we are watching you. The world might not tell you, but we are watching. We know. You never condemned the rebels that killed your own president. How long can this be? How can Africa wait? Have AU that does not make decisions on a country on their own soil? How can you have two governments, one in Benghazi, one in Tripoli, all of them supported by AU? Is this the AU that Nyerere, Sekou Touré, Gabriel Nasser, Ibrahim Selassie, Amir Cabral, Patrice Lumumba, Dr. Obote, Jomo Kenyatta wanted? It is not. There's no need of doing textbooks, reciting here quotes. We need to talk frankly. This is not the Libya we wanted. This is not the AU we want. It is time for us as Africans to do what we call a fatigue evaluation on the African Union. I submit. The French operations in Africa, are they an obstacle? Are they a challenge to the African sovereignty? Are they assimilating Africa? Are they causing chaos, conflicts? Are they putting fire on oil? Are they putting more oil on fire? Are they making sure that the conflicts don't end? We shall use that with the reference to the Congo conflict. As you know very well, a few days ago, in Congo, something strange happened. And the people are turning on the same mediators who have come to help them all the time. You know very well that the relationship between France and the former colonies has been deteriorating day in, day out. Apart from places where France still maintains a grip forcefully, like a Central African Republic, France is maintaining the grip forcefully. Like in Cameroon, France is maintaining the grip forcefully. Like in Chad, France is maintaining the grip forcefully. The killing of General Dabi Idris and the installation of the father of the son after slaughter, senseless murder of the president of Chad still haunts my brain, because I don't know why African Union could not resist suspending Chad completely out of, let me ask you one thing. Why do you, for example, why do you suspend Sudan, Khartoum, and you allow Chad? Both of them should be suspended if you are really playing for a better African Union. But Mr. Mahamat Faki has not suspended Chad because that is his country where he comes from. And he has gone to suspend Sudan. You see, these are some glaring facts that we in Africa must challenge. Newspapers, televisions in Africa, in Uganda, and Kenya, they don't challenge these type of things. We have very, very biased African Union that is working in the interests of the French. The French told them not to suspend Chad from the African Union. This boy just killed his father, or connived to kill the father, took over power, and Mr. Mahamat Faki kept quiet. A whole president who was elected by people. I hate people who use violence to come to power. I hate people who go to overthrow governments to come to power. I hate is an African notion that we are creating. It is better to have a king and you have a working democracy like Britain. There is a king who does not interfere with the affairs of what Mr. Rishi, the Indian Prime Minister, a friend of mine, friend of ours in East Africa, does. He has to go and tell him, I am doing my things. But the coronation, the king in this country, Britain, does not interfere with what you want. If you want to suspend yourself from United Nations, and you feel you are the Prime Minister, you want to move a motion and say, Britain is going to go out of United Nations, the king will not stop you. The king will only ask, why are you leaving? Then you say, we are leaving because we are paying a lot of money for some corrupt men in Africa to eat. Every day I will remind Africans, muamkeni, twende kazi. Tukomboe Afrika yetu. Afrika yetu iko chini ya wabeberu. Wanataka kutumaliza Afrika yetu. Wanataka kutuletea mavurugano kila siku. Mavurugano ambayo iko Afrika leo. Mavurugano hii inatoka wapi? Hii mavurugano si yetu. Hii mavurugano ya hao watu. I'm speaking like Nyerere. You know, very good leaders have this type of voices, if you did not know. Hii voice hii hapana ya bure. Hii voice iko ya Mungu. Matthew chapter 10 verse 14 inasema, ondoka uende zako, usiwawachie kitu, lakini enda zako. Toa hata hiyo, toa uvumbi uende nayo. Vumbi usiwawachie vumbi, uende na vumbi, sababu wasikie. Afrika musikie, musikilize mimi. Nawaambia kila siku, Nyerere ameenda, Obote anaenda, Jomo Kenyatta ameenda, Mashera anaenda, Lumumba ameenda, Mandela ameenda, Mugabe ameenda, Benabera ameenda, Sekuture ameenda, Amir Kabiro wameenda. Lakini nani atawaambia nyenye Afrika? Mniambie leo nyenye Afrika, mnaenda wapi nyenye? Kila siku mnaleta mavurugano kwa nchi hizi za Afrika. Mnataka mavurugano, kupigana. Sisi tuko na kila kitu Afrika hapa. Kwa nini tunapigana kila siku? Kwa nini tunapishana kila siku? Kwa nini tunapishana kila siku? Tunapishana kila siku sababu because iko shida kwa siasa zetu. Tujaribu kugeuza siasa zetu. Tukuwe na siasa mzuri. Tukuwe na siasa ambayo inafikiria wananchi. Tukuwe na siasa ambayo inakuwa na watu na ile politeness. Tukuwe na siasa ambayo inakuwa na forgiveness. Waafrika sisi tuko na siasa mbaya. Unaona Afrika huko wa Kongo wanaleta siasa zao mbaya za mavurugano. Wanataka kuvuruga kila mtu. Unataka mediator, mnamvuruga kwa nini? Alikuja kuwasaidia. Kama mtaki, mnataka kupigana mpaka mpigane mfike kwa Mungu, watu watawacha. Lakini sisi tuwezi kuwacha barabara ile ambayo inaleta amani. Tunataka amani kwa nchi zetu za Afrika. Tuko na mambo mengi sana. Watu wa raia wanataka maendeleo. Watu wa raia wanataka kukula chakula mzuri. Wanataka maisha mzuri. Wanataka dawa zikuwe kwa hospitali. Tutapata wapi dawa kwa hospitali kama tunanunua bunduki za kupigana? Mniambie leo. Kwa nini mimi nazungumza hapa Kiingereza kila siku?
watu wengine wasikie Kiingereza, wenye wasikie Kiingereza shauri yao, lakini kutoka leo tutazungumzanga Kiswahili hapa. Tutajaribu. Nimeshajaribu. Nimeshaambia watu tutakufia Afrika, itapigania Afrika, itaonesha Afrika namna tutaenda. Nchi hizi zote za Afrika iko na mavurugano. Kwa nini mavurugano inatokea wapi? Nchi moja pekee ya Afrika ndio ambayo ina mavurugano mengi, ambayo wana wale prisoners of politics, political prisoners, ndio Kenya. Kama unatembea Kenya huwezi kupata political prisoner. O mtu ule aliingizwa kwa gerezani kama ako na siasa, kwa juu ya siasa. Nchi zote za Afrika apart from Kenya, South Africa, Ghana and some few countries in Africa. Those are few countries. Tanzania hakuna mtu wa siasa mwenye anafungwa juu ya siasa. Tunataka namna hivyo. Lakini nchi zote ngine zinabaki. South Sudan iko na political prisoners. Journalists are being detained. When you yourself you have made a mistake, then you detain the journalist. Mnaona hiyo mambo hiyo ya Afrika. So what about the journalist who saw in Russia? Have you detained him? No, tuzungumize hapo. Miriam, unaona shida zetu. Shida za Afrika ndio hizo. Tunakubali wabeberu wakuje hata sasa hivi watudanganye sisi, wanatupenda. Lakini kama muda inafika wapendi sisi. Umeona hiyo? Wapendi sisi. Wanatuachia tabu. Wanatuachia wanawinchi wetu wanapata adabu sana kubwa. Wanapata shida kubwa sana. Hakuna maendeleo yote. Angalia nchi zote za Afrika sasa. Angalia Central African Republic. Maendeleo gani inaweza enda kwa Central African Republic? Niambie kwa ukweli. Wacha niwaambie France. The French are supporting Bozize. Wacha niambie hii latest. Pale huko Northern Congo, Bozize, which is Southern Central African Republic, Bozize has an army. Sisi wa Afrika tuna aibu. Tunazungumizia wenzi yetu, tunasema mambo mzuri kwa public rally, lakini tunafanya vitendo ambayo inaharibu Afrika. Nani mwenye anampatia Bozize bunduki ya kuenda kumaliza askari serikali ya Central African Republic? Who is arming former President Bozize? Analyze it. Analyze it. I leave it to you. Miriam is an expert of that friend. Where is Bozize getting the guns? Who is supplying Bozize? Who is supplying the guns of 3,000 rebels wenye wako chini Libya kusini? Libya kusini wanamgambo 3,000 wako na silaha za kumaliza 3 countries. They can even come overtake Chad. Sasa tunaenda Doha. Qatar inakuja inasema halala, mkuje sisi tutawapatia pesa, mkuje mkule hapa chai na nini mkunywe na rice and sheep meat, sheep mutton, mkule mutton. Huko wapi? Umesikia? This is what we want to address as wa Africa. Shida gani? Kwa nini tunapigana kila siku? Why are we fighting every day? Why is there a fight in Africa? Why don't we learn to, if we don't want elections, why do you go to elections? Let me ask you a very nice question. Nigeria has registered 93 million voters. 71 million younger generation between 18 and 39, or let's say 45 years. 71 million. Do you know why? Can I tell you what is going to be very interesting? That out of that, only 20 million will vote. And the 70 million will sit at home. 24th February, isn't it, Miriam? Siku hiyo, ask Dr. Matanga, call him to come back here. I will be, I'm around. God will keep me to see Buhari go home and then go and arrange his papers. If Buhari, you don't check the doctor in Saudi Arabia, usikanyage London. Usikanyage London. Then, you know that is the only thing we are going to deal with some of these guys. Atakuhusia we huko, we chunga hapo pande somewhere. Chunga hapo, weka hapa makaratasi. Anakuja na ndege, unashika ndege. Ndege hakuna kutoka kwa kiwanja, uko na deni yangu. So, life is becoming more global. When you treat people badly in Africa, ask Mr. Paul Biya whether he steps in London. Any president listening to me, ask Paul Biya. If you think Matanga talk, ask Paul Biya. Ana karatasi ziko, ako nazo. Hawezi ndege, kana ndege nasema it is diverted to Gatwick. Wala wakiba. Tutamshika. Wata knock on the door. Open the door. That's the treatment we want to take some of these ugly guys who don't know where they are in a conference. Because they are backed by the French hegemony. French operations in Africa are very detrimental. Mozambique was not bleeding. Total Oil took bleeding in Mozambique. You want Matanga to be happy? Yeah, Jamani. No. Sorry. What do I want in France? Why do you undermine a process in Congo by telling a certain section of Congolese to rise against Uhuru Kenyatta and the Kenyan peacekeeping force? Who are you? You want Matanga to keep quiet? I spoke against Ocampo alone. I am going to spearhead this one single-handedly and bring them down. What will they do? What?
Across the continent of Africa, we have seen quite a number of activities that lead to regime change from countries in the West Africa where coups have taken place, in Central Africa, in South Sudan, in Khartoum, Sudan, in Eritrea, and in Tigray and Ethiopia. Libya itself is burning. When you come to Central African Republic, it's burning. When you go to Cameroon, it's burning. When you go to Nigeria, it's sinking. Every morning you wake up, almost over 4,000 from January to March, over 3,000 Nigerians have been killed
and several kidnapped, taken by different sources that we don't know, and the forces, dark forces, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, ISIS, across the continent of Africa. The entire continent seems to have somewhere, somehow, people disappearing. What can we do to prevent this type of catastrophe happening to our countries? In Cameroon, for example, the country has been battling a war between Amazonia and the Cameroonian French-speaking country, part of the country. The Amazonians want independence. Resolution 1608 of 1961 gave them the mandate to seek a referendum. Nobody has given them that independence. African Union has never taken up the matter. It has never come to the African Union discussion again. When you come to Democratic Republic of Congo, thanks to Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, and other countries that have entered Congo at the moment to pacify, to rearrange it, conflicts are everywhere. When you come to Tanzania, when you come to Somalia, across here, battles and the battles of regime change, people wanting a change, people being sponsored, people being paid to make changes. Arab states in the Gulf have moved on African continent, paid money to governments, paid money to ministers, prime ministers, presidents to create chaos on this continent. When you go south in Zimbabwe, a constant move of a threat to a regime change, people walking on the streets. In Malawi, people are walking on the streets. Is there something that is triggering this movement of regime change? The answer is yes, there is. George Soros, Open Society Foundation, and the United States of America government, which is currently the Democratic government of Democrats, they headed by Joe Biden. They always move to remove governments, not through military coups. If you are lucky in Africa and you are not removed by a military coup when there is a democratic government in Washington, you must be a lucky president. What is happening to our continent? Why is the continent going this route? Why are we thinking of coming to the streets instead of resolving most of these things behind the scenes? What has come of us? Africa has been known of resolving its own difficulties without calling in regime change tactics or triggering mechanisms that can destroy our countries. There is a war in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. But we are even being called upon by Ukraine to support them to fight Russia. Why Africa? Why Ukraine is not calling Asian countries to support them? Why is Ukraine not calling the other countries in the world? We are not the only continent. South American countries are very many. Why don't you call Brazil to support you? Why Africa? Why should a Ukrainian president tell African Union that I want to talk to your presidents? Are we seeing something which we don't want to speak about? I think I'll continue speaking about it until Pan-Africanism comes to this continent, until we redirect our efforts towards the rebuilding of our economies, towards the energy of infrastructure, giving the legacies of presidents who have done very well, like President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta of Kenya, who is leaving a legacy of infrastructure that is for future development, to take your goods up to the ports of export. We cannot do anything much until we realize what triggers elections, what triggers wars, what triggers violent regime change. Bad elections, bad elections, bad elections. If we arrange bad elections, if we prepare bad elections badly, George Soros will come in and give us the yellow ribbons. Bad opposition in Africa also gives triggers to a regime change. Opposition in Africa is also being used to just change governments for the sake of change. But what about the governments? The governments in Africa, some of them don't give opposition enough ground, enough stand, enough freedom of choice, association, assembly that is enshrined in their constitutions. Why don't we start working on those freedoms that will allow no foreigner to come into Africa to give us direction, to direct us, to force us to follow the axis of evil? A regime change that kills people, that leaves a country poor, like what took place in Libya, is not a regime change for Africa. I submit.
Viewers, in 1979, Emperor Jean Bokassa died. The Central African Republic, of which he had ruled with an iron fist, cannibalizing people, killing thousands of Central Africans, and most of the Central Africans leaving the state of Central African Republic to seek refuge in other countries abroad, in France, in surrounding countries, Chad, Congo, Sudan, and even Uganda. Central African Republic fell a victim of the French hegemony that has always molested this country in the center of our African continent. How long will this take on? How long will it take for the French to give Central African Republic a breathing space? We have waited for over 60 years since the first country in Africa got independence. But it looks like the only thing that we have tried to get in this policy of assimilation comes to football, of which, again, the French have assimilated our players and taken 15 of our African offsprings that are playing for them in their World Cup. Back to Central African Republic. What went wrong? Why is this country at loggerheads with almost everybody, including God? There has never been peace. There has never been any peace. Is it because the death of Emperor Jean Bokassa, has it got any traces of why God gives powers to our kings, kingdoms, and other rights that we can follow? Why is it that most of the African countries that have got independence with their kings and other chiefs have gone to turmoil? Right from Ethiopia, Libya, Uganda, it went to turmoil for almost 30 years in turmoil. Half of their independence has been sucked into wars. Is there something that we can do to change the situation in Central African Republic? Are the French ready to change and give Central African Republic a breathing space? Is it becoming a ground for a Cold War between Russia and France and the West? We hear of planes coming to bomb Central African Republic from an unknown country, which I believe could be one of the neighbors that has never wished peace in that country, and that is being used as a satellite state on the African continent to mobilize the rest of the African French-speaking countries against the policies of Bangui. Is it time for the African Union, therefore, to stand up and tell the world, why is it silent? Those are the questions that we shall keep on asking today, tomorrow, and the other day. Why is African Union silent about Central African Republic? Have they been paid off? Is the Secretariat paid off? Who has paid them off to keep silent and have a blind eye on the activities that have taken place and that keep on taking place in the Central African Republic? Is Africa getting closer to a Cold War syndrome? Are we seeing a winter where, and a summer where the ants of the savannah are coming back to haunt us? As Chinua Achebe said, for every movement, there has always been negative movement. Changed it. Positive neutrality has changed into negative neutrality. We see them, we see the things, but we don't see and we don't speak. Negativity has caught almost everybody, including our leaders. We deny, we say we don't know, we say we know nothing. Where have we gone wrong? Is Central African Republic cursed? Is the curse in Central African Republic unmanageable? What can Africa do? This message goes to the AU to find out who is this external master who has sabotaged every peace effort to bring that country to peaceful resolution of the conflict that they have. Let's look into it. Thank you very much for watching Punchline Africa Television from London. I'm Dr. David Matanga, preaching peace for Africa. God bless you. God bless Africa. Thank you.
Rivers do not drink their own water. Trees do not eat their own fruit. The sun does not shine on itself, and flowers do not spread their fragrance for themselves. Living for others is a rule of nature. We are all born to help each other. No matter how difficult it is, life is good when you are happy, but much better when others are happy because of you.